everyone, Niklsun here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news, as well as going over what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. So on Tuesday, it came out that Marvel was going to announce and debut their first official trailer for Avengers Age of Ultron on next week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, it looks as though later on that night, it was Wednesday night, that the trailer actually leaked online. Now, whether there's speculation going around right now as to whether or not Marvel actually leaked it, I don't believe so, because just looking at the struggling ratings that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has had, this was going to be a ratings boost. They would not try to, circumvent that or undermine that by leaking the trailer to get more positive buzz. They were already getting people buzzing about the trailer because they said, we're going to debut it next week. Well, it was leaked online, and then Marvel followed that up with a great tweet saying, damn it, Hydra. And so then they eventually just released it in full HD. I mean, if the product is already out there and you got people talking about it and people linking it and getting all of that traffic, you're definitely going to want to have it be your own version, your own high quality version, not a low quality or camera version of it or anything of that sort. So in terms of that, it made sense to leak the trailer. Not to leak the trailer, to officially release it. But let's get into this trailer here. Wow. I mean, I was not expecting it, because up until this point, Joss Whedon has always said that one of the downfalls or pitfalls of the average sequel out there is because they always just try to make things bigger. They always try to make things, the action sequences more extravagant. They always try to go that route. The story has bigger stakes and all that kind of stuff. And Joss Whedon has always come out and kind of talked against that, saying this is going to be a little bit more of a personal story. This is going to get more into the backstories of each character. We just had an alien armada invade Earth. We're not going that big. Well, at least judging by the trailer and all the comments that we've heard about the movie thus far, Ultron's going to have his own robot army. So we've got the army back. The difference being is that in this universe, as far as I know, Ultron is going to be, at least his finalized version, is going to be made out of vibranium, which is the same pretty much indestructible material that Captain America's shield is made out of. So already we're faced with a villain that is going to be much more nefarious than Loki was, than the Chitauri army. But more importantly than that, it's what this trailer really shows everybody. And a couple of the main things, like there's the obvious standout sequence of the Hulkbuster versus Hulk fight, which looks absolutely incredible. I even tweeted out after I saw it, I literally started jumping up and down when I saw that. I know that sounds just a little pathetic, but that's the overall joy and excitement that this trailer invoked on me. And that's the whole point of these things. That's the whole point of movies. That's the whole point of trailers. That's the whole point of everything, is to elicit that excitement, that entertainment value. And they did that in spades with this trailer. This was absolutely incredible. Now, mind you, this is a teaser trailer. We didn't really get a good sense of the story. We saw a little bit of the process that the movie is going to take over the course of its 2.5 hour runtime, most likely. So we got a lot of really cool little nuggets. I mean, I'm not going to go into everything because you guys have obviously already watched the trailer. This is just my overall opinion on it. But I felt that it was very close to the footage that was shown at San Diego Comic-Con, with the exception of the opening part of that footage being the party sequence where they were, jokingly trying to lift the hammer. And also the end shot with Captain America's shield being broken. In the Comic-Con footage, apparently you saw Tony Stark overlooking everybody, and then that's when you saw the shattered shield and Thor laying there. So that to me means right off the bat, that is not a minor spoiler. Again, this is my opinion. I don't know if this is true. This is just what I've based everything on versus what I've seen. And I believe that is definitely a dream sequence that is induced by Scarlet Witch to showcase to Tony Stark, this is what's going to happen. This will be the outcome of this. If one thing is not changed, if something doesn't get done, if somebody doesn't stand up against this, this is what's going to happen. All of your heroes are going to die. You need to figure out a way to defeat this guy. You created him. You need to figure out a way to defeat him. And I am almost convinced that that's what that sequence was, because first off, we've got Cap 3 coming. We already know that Captain America's not going to die. So showcasing that means that this is going to be a possible outcome. That being said, they could also be looking into the future. There's all these possibilities when dealing with the worlds that Marvel has opened up with their last couple of films. There are so many possibilities that this could lead to. But I'm going off on a little bit with that. I want to get to one thing specific. The one thing that I noticed from this trailer are the little seeds that are being planted supposedly for Civil War. So you have, obviously you have the Hulk versus Hulkbuster. The theory been going around about that for a while has been it's either going to be they're actually fighting or it's going to be some sort of training sequence. Judging by the footage that we've seen, this is clearly not a training sequence because they're fighting in the middle of a crowded downtown section in what appears to be Africa. Because I think, as far as I know, that is where they shot it. So that's probably where it's going to be set. And from my understanding, I think that's going to take place closer to the beginning of the film, although I hope not. I do hope that it's a little bit further on. But another thing, too, is James Spader actually just came out. And he's, by the way, his voice as Ultron, wow. I mean, just, I can't even go into it. Just, I mean, perfect. You could not have found a better voice actor for this. I assume that they could have, but it's just his voice, just the emotions and the feelings that it elicits is just perfect. But he went on record to say that he's kind of like a new child because he's just come into this world. But because he's an artificial intelligence, he's able to absorb knowledge at such an increased and fast rate that he is a very dangerous and scary child. And he even went on to say that he's psychopathic. He is batshit crazy. So I cannot wait to see the full interpretation of Ultron on screen because I think with James Spader being in there, this is just going to be a delicious villain. I do feel that this is going to be the best villain that Marvel has unveiled because clearly, he is going to be a main character in the movie. He's not going to be a side villain like Malekith was in Thor 2 or the Mandarin was in Iron Man 3. This is going to be a centralized character, very much like Loki was. We're going to get a lot of development on them, which means we're going to care more about them. We're going to be invested more in them. So it's going to make the overall weight of that character feel and mean more to the average moviegoer. At least, that's my hope from it. That's at least what I hope from it. One other thing I noticed from the trailer, and this is full-on nerd, this movie is going to be released in the 235 aspect ratio instead of the 185 aspect ratio. So, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the average movie that comes out in theaters, on average, is shot in what's called the 235 aspect ratio. So that's when you see the black bars along the top and the bottom. The first movie was shot in the 185 aspect ratio, which is what most television shows are shot at. And that made sense from Joss Whedon because he came from a mostly television background. He's done Serenity before, and he did, I can't remember if he directed, but I know he wrote the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But coming into 235, it looks more cinematic. There's more capability that he has with the camera, with the way that shots are put together. You can have more information shown on the screen as opposed to the size. Like, they were trying to go height-wise. And when you watch a Blu-ray of a movie that was shown in IMAX, generally speaking, any of the IMAX shots you're going to see are shown in that aspect ratio because that's the way that the screen is. And it's such a massive palette to be able to showcase your imagery on. But the average movie out there is 235 or even 240. 240 is extreme, and I think there's only been a handful of movies that have shot at full 240. I remember they made the decision to shoot Spider-Man 2 in that so that they could get the full extent of Doc Ock's arms and his tentacles. So, but that to me was one of the biggest things because we're going to get a more cinematic experience. I really can see the evolution of Joss Whedon's camera movements and his eye. He did go and get a new cinematographer. He got the guy who shot Guardians of the Galaxy to come in and shoot Age of Ultron. So there's a lot more being brought up in this movie. There's a lot more information that we can take out of it. If you haven't seen the trailer yet, which I'm sure you guys have, but if you haven't or just want to watch it again, you can check out the description for this video for the link for that trailer because it is just, I wasn't expecting it to be as good. I thought it was going to be reminiscent of the first trailer that we got for the first Avengers, which, I mean, it had a couple of cool shots in it, but for the most part, it was that last little bit with Tony Stark going up to Mark Ruffalo or to Bruce Banner saying, I'm a huge fan of your work in this, and I'm a really great fan of how you lose control and turn into an enormous giant green rage monster. So that was the part that really made everybody kind of laugh out of that. And with this trailer, you can see that's not where they're going. I do think on the next trailer, we're going to get a little bit more levity. We're going to get a little bit more jokes and laughs to really set up the world at the beginning of that trailer. And then they're going to siege into the really dark and gloominess that the whole movie is going to convey. That's the mood that they're going for with this film. And at the end, now, here's where we get into really big spoiler territory. Because if any of the previous reports that have come out before are true, then this movie is going to start off the Civil War storyline. Captain America 3 is really going to push that along, but we're really going to see the beginnings of the Civil War at the end of this film. Because, again, spoiler alert, because at the end of this film, it's being reported that due to the catastrophic events of Ultron's army and the level of destruction, there's really going to be this separation between Captain America and Iron Man, where Captain America is basically going to take his own team and become his own set of Avengers. So he's going to take the rumored lineup for that is War Machine, Winter Soldier, Captain Marvel, because she's supposed to have a cameo in this movie. Who else? Vision, which that to me is kind of surprising because Vision is going to be a version of the butler, Jarvis. So it's going to be a version of Jarvis, and to me it's surprising that he would go against Tony Stark. But again, we don't know the situations. We don't even know if this is true. But basically, Captain America is going to split off into his own Avengers team to lead his own team comprised of all new heroes, or at least heroes that we have only seen in supporting roles until this point. That's then going to lead into Avengers 3, which is going to be the culmination of the Civil War storyline. And the theory going around right now on a couple of different outlets are that Thanos is actually going to come to Earth in Avengers 3. They're going to really set up the Thanos coming to Earth thing in Guardians 2. He's going to come to Earth at the end of Avengers 3, which is going to cause all of the Avengers to come back together to fight him, and that's going to lead into either Avengers 4 or Marvel's big event film that they're planning, which I'm going to assume if Avengers 3 is going to be 2020 and they're going to be continuing on the Thanos storyline and Infinity Gauntlet storyline, I have a feeling in 2020 is when we're going to get the event or the Marvel big series event film that is going to be Thanos coming down. Guardians are going to be coming to Earth. All the Avengers are going to have to band together to defeat the largest threat the universe has ever seen. The thing with that is, and this is I think where a lot of people have kind of stopped thinking, where do they go after that? They've built up this, unless they start building up another potential storyline to start to tell. What possibilities are there after the Thanos threat? Because at least to my knowledge, and I'm not as big of a comic book nerd as it comes out as, and I would like to hear your guys' opinions on this. Please put a comment in the comment section if you guys know any possibilities as to where they could go after the Thanos storyline. Because to me, at least, it's like X-Men doing Apocalypse. After Apocalypse, where can you go? What threat is going to be any bigger or more personal than that? And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more personal ones, but I do think that Thanos is going to be the largest threat that the Avengers are ever going to have to face. But again, I don't know as much about all the comics as a lot of you guys do, so if you want to, go ahead in the comment section and put a comment in there as to where you think that they could go from here. But as it stands right now, again, you can go and check out the trailer in the description below, but as it stands right now, Avengers Age of Ultron will be opening up May 1st, 2015, and we're definitely going to be expecting at the end of February, beginning of March, the final trailer. I would assume we're going to get another Super Bowl ad. I mean, I think that's almost a given. And that'll be followed up by the final trailer about a month later or so, maybe a couple of weeks later. So definitely check back for that. It's not going to be for a while, but definitely check back for that. But when we get more information about Avengers Age of Ultron, I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, it looks as though after months of rumors and speculation, Christian Bale has officially signed on to play Steve Jobs in the upcoming Untitled Biopic. Now, this biopic there's a lot of interesting facts about this, and I've gone on record before about some of the interesting things, but I'll just reiterate some of them right now. But originally, David Fincher was in line and in talks to direct the film, but he had several demands, one of which was he needed his salary up front, which he was apparently, according to this report, he was requesting a $10 million salary for the film and to be paid up front. The second thing, he wanted complete control over the marketing campaign. And due to He had the same negotiations with Sony over Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, and they agreed to it. He had control over the marketing. And that movie was, I don't know if I'd call it a bomb, but it wasn't anywhere near as successful as they wanted it to be. So the third thing was that he was demanding that Christian Bale play the lead role. And they balked at all of these demands, and they said, unfortunately, no, we're going to pass on it. But that would have meant we would have got a slight Social Network pseudo sequel in a sense, because it would have been David Fincher directing from an Aaron Sorkin script and being produced by Scott Rudin. So all of these guys came together to do the Social Network, and then they were going to try to do it again, in a sense, with the Steve Jobs biopic. That turned out not to be the case because Sony ended up passing on it. And after a couple of months of looking, Danny Boyle actually came on and signed on to direct the film. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Danny Boyle, he's directed such classics as Trainspotting, and more recently he did The Beach as well, that's more of a cult classic than anything else. I really did appreciate that film, but it was marketed completely incorrectly. But more recently, one of my favorite films of his is Sunshine. I absolutely love that film. Say what you will about the third act. To me, it got a little twisted, absolutely, but I really did kind of like it. Like the third act, I loved the movie. I loved the acting. That was the movie, I think, that turned a lot of people around on Chris Evans. A lot of people were skeptical about Chris Evans before that, and they just didn't know what to make of it. They didn't know. He was always seen as the comedic guy. He never really had done anything really dramatic, outside of maybe save for a few couple of roles here and there. But that movie really turned a lot of people around on him. And he played a very good leader. That cemented a lot of people for him to play Captain America, because he played a really good leader. He knew what decisions had to be made. He knew when they had to be made. And he knew, regardless of emotion or anything of that sort, he knew what needed to be done for the overall mission, the big picture. He had a big picture vision. And so I really appreciated that. And a lot of that has to do with Danny Boyle, because he really knows how to get great performances out of his actors. Well, Danny Boyle is signed on to direct this. He would also be more known for, Slumdog Millionaire, 28 Days Later. His last movie that he did, I believe, was called Trance. Wasn't all that good, but I mean, it was a Danny Boyle film, so it had a unique style and visual look to it. But this film is going to be very different because, and this is what I've talked about before, where this movie is going to be set over 3 distinct scenes. It's not going to be the standard 3-act structure. It's going to be a 3-scene structure. From my understanding, it takes place in real time, which means that 1 minute of screen time is actually 1 minute in the real world. And it very much like how 24 was done. The difference being is that this whole movie is going to be set in only 3 locations. And it's going to be at the keynote speeches, or just before the keynote speeches, of 3 major Apple events. The first one being the original Mac, the next one being the Apple Next, and the final one being the unveiling of the first iPod. And for a while there, it looked as though they were settling on Leonardo DiCaprio. But Leonardo DiCaprio decided to pass on the role, which I think he would have been a great choice. But thinking about Christian Bale, and a lot of people give this guy a lot of flack because of, when he came out with Terminator Salvation, people were saying he's just playing Batman. And then a couple other roles that he's done, they're like, oh, he's just playing this guy, he's just playing that guy. It's okay. You need to go and watch, if you guys are still doubtful about Christian Bale, and this should hopefully turn you guys around, but if not, I mean, everybody's open to their own opinion, absolutely. But The Machinist, The Fighter, as much as I didn't really care for the movie, American Hustle, he's very good in that movie. And obviously, I mean, the one that really launched his career, American Psycho. I mean, you watch those films and you see such a different role, a different person, a different character in every single movie. And you can really get a sense of how damn good this guy actually is and how he can really just sink into a role, into a character. On top of that, he kind of looks like Steve Jobs a little bit. And obviously they're going to do makeup and prosthetics on him a little bit to make him look even more like that. But I mean, he's really got the look down, and I really do think that this guy can definitely do it. There's been some talk online about, this is a definite Oscar contender. I don't think that's the case. You can never have a surefire hit. What's a really good example of that? You look at Daniel Day-Lewis. Everybody says how Daniel Day-Lewis, if he gets into a movie, if he signs onto a role, you can guarantee that's a Best Picture nominee. Really? Go back, I think it was the year 2009, maybe 2008, and look at the movie 9, the musical that he did from Rob Marshall. oh God, was that movie bad. Now, I'm not that big of a fan of musicals, so already I went in with a little bit of trepidation, but I was at least open-minded enough to see, this is Daniel Day-Lewis choosing this project. There's got to be something with it. There's got to be something there. And I started watching it, and I almost had to shut it off. Like, I ended up getting through the whole thing, but it wasn't good. The characters were not that great. The acting was, it was all right. It just looked as though he thought that there was going to be something a lot more. Maybe he just wanted to try a musical. I don't know his decision, but right there, that is the exemption to the rule. Or sorry, the exception to the rule. Because, I mean, it's Daniel Day-Lewis. This guy basically, they should just carve his face on the Oscar. Because every time he goes up for a role, he gets nominated. Except for that one. So it doesn't always mean that this is going to be a success. There is a hell of a lot riding on this for it to be almost a guaranteed success. You have Danny Boyle directing, whose track record is much better than most others. You have Aaron Sorkin writing it. The last feature film that he wrote won the Academy Award. And he's currently working on The Newsroom. He's working on the final season of The Newsroom that he's been doing with HBO. And that show's been winning awards left, right, and center. So he's coming back. And then you have Christian Bale, who almost every single time is nominated for an Academy Award. And he won for The Fighter. So you've got all of these components coming together to make it very likely. I don't know if it's a slam dunk, because there's nothing that can be quantifiably calculated when it comes to that. Yes, it's likely. It's very likely, but I just don't know if it is actually going to be a surefire hit. I'm very much looking forward to it, because having Christian Bale being directed by Danny Boyle, uttering Aaron Sorkin's words that he's written out, and Aaron Sorkin even went on record to say that, talking about Christian Bale playing Steve Jobs, he said, this is the type of role where there's not going to be one single frame that he's not in the movie. He's going to be on screen every single second that you are watching that film. And he also has more dialogue, he said he has more dialogue than most actors have in 3 films. So there, and with it being Aaron Sorkin's dialogue, there is so much juicy options available here. And I cannot wait to see what comes out of this. But again, we have to kind of take a step back and say, this might be just really, really good. Which I don't think you could even criticize that. But I don't know if this is just going to be out and out Oscar contender right off the hop. It definitely has the ingredients for it. But we always have to take that step back and say, this could misfire. There is a very big possibility, because of the way that this film is set up. With the 3 acts, it's a risk. It's definitely a risk, but I think it's really going to pan out. And I really do hope that it does, because I think this is something that is going to change how some people view films. Maybe not that. That's maybe a little bit too blasé, but maybe it's going to change the way that some people are willing to look at how to approach making a film, especially the studios. If this film comes out and they see that this type of structure works, they may be more willing to look at other riskier options and riskier projects that are coming out solely because this one was a hit. If that's the case, then I'm definitely on board for it, because I do think we need a little bit more diversity in the types of films that we're getting, but more so in just the content that we're getting inside those films. So the Untitled Steve Jobs biopic starring Christian Bale has no release date yet. But it's going to be an awards contender. They're definitely going to strive for that. So expect it in awards season, probably sometime in fall 2015. I don't think they're going to push this all the way to 2016. It just all depends on how things are able to come together with it. But this film's been in the pipeline for a couple of years now. Aaron Sorkin signed on over 2 years ago. So actually, I think it was in 2011 that he signed on. So it's been almost 3 years now. So it's going to be a little bit of time before we get more information about this. But when we do, I will definitely update you guys on here. And the last story that we have to talk about today is in regards to the upcoming Wonder Woman adaptation from Warner Brothers in DC. It looks as though they are heavily searching for a female director to helm this pick. And I really do think that this is an inspired decision to try to do. This is going to be the type of movie that can really change the face of the industry, because as much as I like to argue about the Ghostbusters thing, about it being an all-women cast and stuff like that, I really do feel that that is a gimmick. But when it comes to, female directors or anything like that, they are criminally underused. Because, especially just looking at the superhero genre, there's only been one comic book film that has been directed by a female, and that was Lexi Alexander, who directed Punisher Warzone, starring Ray Stevenson, that came out, I think it was back in like 2007 or 2008. Every other Marvel movie, DC movie, Dark Horse movie, anything of that sort, they've all been directed by males. And there was a report I was reading earlier online that summed it up perfectly. And they said that there are so many incompetent male directors that keep getting steady jobs. And a couple of those now, I wouldn't call him incompetent. I would just say his track record lends more to him not being either very good, or he's only for a specific type of clientele. But that would be Brett Ratner. I've never really been that big of a fan of Brett Ratner outside of he did Red Dragon, and I really did like that movie. I really did like Rush Hour 2. And also, I mean, he did, was it Money Talks with Charlie Sheen? I thought that was kind of funny, but I mean, that was his first film. But the one film that I really felt that he could have done a lot with, but it just kind of misfired, was After the Sunset with Pierce Brosnan and Salma Hayek. That movie really did have a lot of potential to it, and it just misfired. So he's had some success, but the last one that I can remember that was actually really decent was Red Dragon. And I think Red Dragon came out in 2003 or 2004. So it's been now 10 years since he's had an okay or good film. So keep getting big budget productions, like he just did Hercules, and that movie didn't do very well. He did X-Men: The Last Stand, and that movie financial wise did very well, but critic wise it wasn't very well liked. There were a couple of sequences in the movie that I liked, but his overall direction of the characters I felt was very bad. But he keeps getting work. I mean, there's M. Night Shyamalan keeps getting work, and I have no idea why. The dude was almost a one-trick pony, because I mean, you look at a movie like The Sixth Sense, and then he did, Unbreakable, which was really good. He did Signs, which I really do like. I like his first 3 movies, but after that, The Village was absolutely terrible because the trailers only showed you the first 25 minutes of the movie. And then everything else was just like, okay, this is garbage. Then he did Lady in the Water, which was absolutely abysmal, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to female directors, I mean, Marvel has already toyed with that. We had Patty Jenkins was going to be directing Thor 2, but then there were creative differences that came out. And the rumor with that was that she was going to go too dark. She was going to go too gritty, too real world for that film, because all of her other films have had that kind of visual cue and visual look. And so I think what Marvel was seeing from either the storyboards or just the general direction the movie was going to go, they just didn't want to have their sequel to Thor be completely different than the first Thor. Now, from my understanding, she is still being looked at as a director for a future Marvel film. I don't think they've completely severed their ties. But that almost caused Natalie Portman to drop out of Thor 2. She was going to fight her contract on that movie because she was so enraged by them not letting Patty Jenkins direct the film. Alan Taylor came on and did a serviceable job. So there are a lot of female directors out there that I have been hoping would get this chance. The obvious one that everybody's running with right now is Kathryn Bigelow. I mean, from Point Break to Strange Days to her most recent ones like The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. She's got the new one. I think it was called Blood American or something like that. It's something American, which I think is going to be a really fascinating look. I don't know if she has the right sensibilities for a comic book movie, because it all depends if she goes to DC or if she goes to Marvel, which are really the only 2 major companies out there producing comic book films. So if she does go to a film like Wonder Woman, she has to embrace the fantastical a little bit more. And I wholeheartedly believe that she can. I mean, she was married to James Cameron, for Christ's sake. I mean, the dude lives in his own imagination, so some of that must have rubbed off on her. So I do think that she is definitely capable of getting her mind inside that world, because that's really what the director needs to do. They need to get their mind inside that world and really start to expand upon and evaluate what things will really work well in a visual sense and what will work well in a subtle sense, and be able to introduce those into subtle elements in the film. So I really do think that she has definitely the possibility, and she's the most notable director. I think she has the widest audience, because more people would know about her than some of the other directors, female directors, I should say. But a couple of other options that are coming out on some of these lists. I'm really intrigued by Lynn Ramsey. Lynn Ramsey directed a movie a couple of years ago called We Need to Talk About Kevin. And there would be a really great connection there because Ezra Miller, who was in that movie, is now playing the Flash. So there could be something saying, like, I worked with her. She was really good. You should think about coming in on a meeting with her. But Ezra Miller holds no weight whatsoever when it comes to making any decisions. So do not take that as anything. I just mean that there is a air of possibility when it comes to that. But another one to think about would be Mimi Leder. And Mimi Leder has done such movies as Deep Impact and several other movies like that, but she just has a really great sensibility of working with ensembles. And so doing something like Wonder Woman and maybe further exploring the Amazonian world, and having Wonder Woman be the standout of an ensemble movie, then I really do think that could work really well. Especially looking at some of her other films, they're just really strong female characters, and she really knows how to direct her actors. She really knows how to position them well in a scene to be able to get the right mood and the right conveyance out of them. So there's a lot of possibilities with that. But there's been some reports saying, well, none of these directors have any real experience working on this. So look, like, take a page out of Kevin Feige's book. Kevin Feige stated on record saying, we don't need the directors who have had, 10 films working with special effects. We're looking for great storytellers. We need somebody to be able to tell a great story, to be able to direct the actors in the way that they need to be directed to bring about the story they're trying to tell. And they can surround those people with the best possible people in each division. So you can have the best special effects supervisor on set. You can have the best set designer. You can have the best costume designers. You can have the best lighting and cinematographers. You can have all these people there to get the right camera movements and the right eyes and the right look and stuff like that. And you can have the director really just focus on the overall story and also getting those intimate and immediate moments out of the actors' performances. Look what happened with the Russo brothers. That was where he was talking about it, because the Russo brothers, up until that point, I don't even know if they had a feature film. I think they did. I think they had 1 or 2 feature film credits to their name, but outside of that, they were mostly known for TV comedies. But they were really good storytellers. And same with James Gunn. James Gunn is a really good storyteller, but I think his largest budgeted movie before Guardians was maybe like $15-20 million, might have been a little bit higher, but it was around there. He had only really dealt with indie films. And so when the studios surround these people with the right individuals for those specific departments, they can get the best product out of it that they can. So they're not limiting their search. They're just looking for the best storytellers. And with Wonder Woman, I really do think that, obviously, I think a woman can direct a male story and a male can direct a female story. I don't think there's any real issue with that. But I do think that with something like Wonder Woman, the having a female director would lend some sensibilities to it that could really work out. I am getting a little bit of a desperation waft from this, but it might just be because of my pessimistic look towards the Ghostbusters reboot and seeing how studios are just saying, well, there hasn't been a lot of female directors, so let's just get a female director for Wonder Woman because that makes sense. If it turns out that the director that they're going for is the best possible director, then I'm all for it. I don't care who it is. I don't care where they come from. I don't care what experience they have. As long as what the reason that the studio is going with them is because from what they've seen, if they've been shown a test reel or if they've been shown like what Kevin Tankarian did, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but what he did with Mortal Kombat with that Rebirth video, that was kind of his test reel. He shot that. He set up the mood, he set up the world, but it was only like a 7-minute video. And that got him on board the Mortal Kombat feature film reboot, which ended up just destroying itself. But that's just my example, showing that, if a director comes out and says, listen, this guy doesn't really have a lot of experience working on these films, but my God, was that the most impressive thing that we've seen. And that is exactly the type of idea that we're looking for. That is the right visual style. That is the right, that's the right motion of camera. That's everything about it. The mood, everything is what we're looking for. And if that's the case, then I'm on board for it. We've always been thrown a curveball. Again, going back to Marvel, look at James Gunn signing up for Guardians of the Galaxy. That was such a wacky idea, but hell, it worked. The Russo brothers, that was probably their biggest risk to date in choosing a director, and yet it worked because they knew the character, they knew that world, and they were able to be surrounded by the people to make that happen, to make sure that they got the best possible product out there. So I am definitely on board with this. As long as they surround them with the best people, for sure. Hire whoever you can, whoever you need to. If they get Kathryn Bigelow in this, Holy crap. That would be a huge win for Warner Brothers. I mean, I don't think you could get a better female director out there. Again, only looking at the available filmography. I'm not saying that quality-wise she is better than any of them. It's just based on the filmography that we've seen. Kathryn Bigelow is probably the most standout choice, but there are so many options out there that they can pull from. I really do hope that they go with something inspired, and if they, like I said before, if they surround them with the right people, then it should work no problem. You should not have any worry about getting somebody who is the most experienced in this field or the least experienced. As long as they know how to direct actors, they know how to tell the proper story, and they have some level of investment in this world, you're going to get a good film out of it. So I really do hope that they come up with something soon. Well, I mean, not soon. They don't really need to. The movie's still 2.5 years away. Wonder Woman will be opening up on June 23rd, 2017, unless, Batman v Superman comes out and is a complete train wreck, which I don't think will be, because Warner Brothers has too much invested in this for them to just cancel their lineup after one film. But if Batman v Superman came out and was terrible and didn't make a lot of money, and then Suicide Squad came out and wasn't very good, well, by that time, Justice League Part 1 and Wonder Woman would have most likely already been shot. So those movies are coming out regardless. Justice League Part 2, they may still be in filming of that, and they may say, okay, you know what? We're going to give Wonder Woman a shot, and then after that, if Wonder Woman's not very good, we're canceling all the other films and refiguring out this universe that we're going to go in. I highly doubt that's going to be the case. Even if the movies are not all that great, they're going to make a buttload of money. They're going to make so much money. So I don't think we have any fear of that. But as it stands right now, Wonder Woman is set for a June 23rd, 2017 release. If we do get more information about this topic, then I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Why don't you go ahead and click the subscribe button there. You can get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And you can also give us a like on our Facebook page at facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. If you guys have a question or a topic that you'd like to have discussed on the show, go ahead and put an email in at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com, or put a comment in the comment section and it will be answered hopefully on every Friday episode. But until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.